Announcing this week that he says that he's going to dissolve his charitable foundation to avoid any conflicts of interest, but it is unclear how he will do that before taking the oath of office come January 20th. CNN's Ryan Nobles live for us in Washington with more. Good morning, Ryan.
Don, good morning to you. Well, Trump himself has not personally donated to this foundation since 2008. It currently has no employees. It hasn't actively raised funds in some time. But in a statement, the president-elect says that he's instructed his attorneys to dissolve the charity, writing, quote, "To avoid even the appearance of any conflict with my role as president, I've decided to continue to pursue my strong interests in philanthropy in other ways." But just shutting down the foundation may not be enough. A spokesperson for New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, who was a Hillary Clinton supporter and launched an investigation into the charity during the campaign, said the foundation cannot legally dissolve until their investigation is complete. Now, Schneiderman has been investigating how Trump used the foundation to settle personal business dealings. Now, speaking of those personal business dealings, Trump has also said that he's going to remove himself from his global business empire, but he's yet to explain because it would be too demanding for his young family. Don?
All right, a lot to get to. Thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate that. Let's discuss now with New York Times investigative reporter Eric Lipton. Eric, you have been writing about this. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on New Day. I hope you had a great holiday.
Good morning.
On Saturday, Donald Trump said that he will dissolve his personal foundation to, and this is what he says, quote, "to avoid even the appearance of any conflict with my role as president." Are you surprised at all by his decision?
No, not very surprised. I think that the problem is if you're going to be out soliciting money for people to make contributions to your foundation and then you take that money and you give it to other causes, which in some situations Donald Trump has done, although, of course, David Fahrenthold has documented not many times. But if you're going to be out there soliciting money, then people are potentially going to be giving to you because you're president of the United States. And so they could be trying to impress you, influence you by writing big checks. So it makes it very hard for someone who's in a public position to be soliciting money for a charity or even their children. So it's not at all surprising that he's reached the conclusion that he needs to shut this foundation down.
All right, in the meantime, I want to get to, speaking of that, because this is from the DNC, there's a statement on this, and he said the Trump Foundation also has a pitiful record of service and instead has serviced as a slush fund for Trump to bribe elected officials, attack his political enemies, and buy portraits of himself. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but it has been well documented, both by the Washington Post and the New York Times and other news organizations, that the Trump Foundation was used to serve the interest of the Trump organization and Donald Trump himself, in addition to making some charitable contributions. And there was a fair amount of criticism of how this money was used during the campaign, and it also has been by the New York State Attorney General for some time now. It has been prohibited from raising money because it was not appropriately registered in the state of New York to solicit contributions. Yeah. So this is a troubled charity.
It's still under investigation. So he cannot shut this foundation down while it's under investigation.
That's right. It's a subject of an investigation by the Attorney General. It's presumably a civil review to determine if it broke any laws. There could potentially be a penalty, so you wouldn't want a organization to be liquidated so it had no money to pay a fine if that were to be the determination. So it's not surprising that they would be negotiating, presumably, with the State Attorney General's office to determine, as part of it, the desire to liquidate it, if there needs to be some type of an agreement, which includes potentially some type of settlement.
But he and Republicans have said that this is partisan. This investigation is partisan. Is that so?
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you are not registered to be soliciting money in New York State and you're collecting donations on behalf of a foundation, that's something that an Attorney General, which has jurisdiction over charities, is going to look into. So, I mean,
his business is going to be run by his sons, Don Jr., Eric. They're going to run. They're on his transition team. Short of liquidating the company, can Trump really be free of conflicts of interest?
I mean, there are both Democrats and Republicans in the Office of Government Ethics, which each have said that they think the only appropriate way for him to be president without questions about potential conflicts is for him to liquidate his holdings, sell them, put the proceeds into treasury bonds or mutual funds, and let someone else handle the management of that money. That's really the only way for him to be president and to be clear of...
He's saying, he has said that his businesses are so complicated because of what he does as real estate, that it might be virtually impossible for him to do that. Does he have a point?
Yeah, that would be very help oversee the business and make sure that there is not inappropriate communication between his sons and the administration, and then perhaps also the trustee would help oversee some of the sales of some of the assets while he's in office to try to get rid of the ones that present the most serious conflicts. I mean, my guess is that's where we're headed. There's no way he's going to be able to liquidate everything by the inauguration day, and it's something that he also said he doesn't want to do. So I think we're mostly likely headed towards some type of an outside party that would be helping the sons and other family members oversee the company as he serves as president. Whether or not that's sufficient is an open question.
Yeah. As we have seen throughout the campaign, his supporters don't seem to care. I mean, he didn't release his tax returns, right? What does this mean going forward? What kind of presidency will we see with this?
I think that unless he does liquidate, he's going to consistently be faced with questions about potential conflicts because, you know, whether or not it's a labor issue that he's deciding on as president, and then there's a labor dispute perhaps at one of his hotels, or, I mean, there's so many overlap, or he's involved with some branded property overseas at the same time as he's trying to do foreign policy with a particular country. There's going to be questions, and it's going to dog him, and so I think that's why it's in his interest to address these issues.
Eric Lippman from the New York Times, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Poppy?
Don, thanks. Homeowners looking to extend their stay at Grandma's house. Listen up, you may be in luck. Snow, ice, and freezing rain making your trek home pretty tough. We're going to check on the winter storm and how it will impact your travel next.